So we just talked about some of the highest rated games on the PlayStation 2, topping off with Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, and Madden NFL 2003. But when it comes to the OG Xbox, this console that a lot of people were not sure about, like, is this going to be successful? I mean, you already got Nintendo and Sony that everybody knows and loves, right? And then here's this brand new contender with Microsoft. 2002 was an all right year, at least for me, and I did own the console at this point. So Ryan and Juan here reacting to Metacritic's top 100 highest rated games on the original Xbox. Now for PS2, we first talked about a wrestling game, so I think it's only fitting that we do something similar, because at 94 on this list, at a 68. So the fact that at the top 100, we have some not so great reviewed games. So maybe says a little bit about the overall scores, but we have WWF Raw. And this game is responsible in many ways for the beginning of our friendships, of our relationships, of me.
Well, this
possibly,
series, we should say.
yeah, exactly. So talk to me about WWF Raw for the Xbox, which was very different than the SmackDown games on the PS2.
Yeah, so WWF Raw, I actually don't know too much about the original one. I did own Raw 2, but the original one, yeah, Xbox, they just never found their footing with their own exclusive wrestling game. Because in this era...
Actually, no, they didn't.
In this era, GameCube, Xbox, PS2 all had their own series of wrestling games. It wasn't like today where it's like cross-generation. Every game had their own... every system had their own series, and Xbox, it had some great ideas, but it just never could quite get off the ground with anything. And I do think Raw 2 was probably the best one, but that's really not saying much. But they had some great ideas. I don't know if the original one let you have custom entrance music, but I know...
You could have a lot of stuff, and as a matter of fact... the first one was on PC. So to this day, people continue modding it, adding brand new stuff, because that first one, it's like, it did perform some interesting things, like, do. Ryan, get it out of your system. Get it out of you're fine.
We're so mature here. Yep.
No, but like you could do a lot of stuff with weapons. You could put on and take off a mask. Like, the concept was neat, but yeah, this would not be the wrestling game that you're like, oh, this is my number one, and it's not even top 50 in here. So I guess many people agree here.
It's probably because there probably wasn't more than 100 Xbox games released that year, so it just made the list by default, I'm guessing.
Damn, that those are some harsh words, my friend. But then one game that, man, I don't know if you've ever played this, but when I first played the original Burnout, got a 75 here, so pretty good review score. I was never big into the simulation-based racing games, right? But then here came Burnout, which the whole concept is, check out, like, what if crashing is not something you're avoiding? Crashing is the thing you want to be able to do. And the first one laid the foundation for arguably my favorite Burnout, which is Burnout 3 Takedown on the PS2. But did you ever play this one or know about it?
I only played Burnout 3, but I adore that game, so I appreciate the mentality that the Burnout games really brought to the series was, okay, let's just make the crashes super detailed and exciting. And I love that concept because it was in contrast to a lot of more standard, kind of dull racing games. It had like an appeal to someone who didn't really care about racing that much and just wanted to see really cool crashes and explosions and stuff.
I'm just going to say, I love this user review from Burnout. 10 out of 10. Josh J. wrote in May 2002, it's tight. That's it. That's the whole review, man.
That's all you need to know.
I love it. Okay, this blew my mind because I've actually played this game. A better score than Lord of the Rings and other games. At number 42, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the video game. Now, I like to bring this one up because once we got to the 360 PS3 generation, it's not that we didn't get games based on TV shows, but PS2, PS1 generation Xbox, like, we got a lot of those. And usually they were beat 'em ups, hack and slash. But this one was It was aight. It wasn't tight. It was aight. Right? Wow, that was bad. Did you watch Buffy?
I did.
Okay, good. I still like you.
Yeah. No, my sister was really into it, and then just eventually she's watching a few episodes. You just sit down on the couch, you start watching, and you start to get into it too.
Okay,
so
it's all about the intro song, right?
Oh yeah, the intro song was
so
great,
good.
and there's a lot of good music in that. 90s, early 2000s, a lot of good music. But yeah, because it was one of the few shows that like I would be interested at that time that did have like, each episode would be a continuation of the story. So it made you want to kind of tune in every week.
It did.
But never played the game.
No, it's not bad. Like honestly, it's I mean, it's kind of.
Would you just go around killing vampires or?
Yeah, it's like you do have voiceover. It's a fairly accurate recreation of the series, not in any amazing type of way. But if you're looking, it's like, oh, you don't want to watch Buffy, but you want to relive those times. Like, hey, you can get like a decent hack and slash game. Now, this game is very interesting. It got a 79 score as well. It's SpiderMan, the movie game. And look, I think we can all agree SpiderMan 2 is a freaking amazing game. I mean, that one just, holy crap, right? But then this first one, it's not nearly as ambitious as the sequel, and I think that's why it often doesn't get talked about enough, but it was pretty good, and I'm hoping you played it, right?
I actually did. This is a game, I think I played it on GameCube, but I rented it, and I want to say I beat the game or got pretty close. I remember getting very far through the game. But yeah, seeing it on the list just like unlocked the memory of me playing it. Like until then I had completely forgotten that I had played this game, but I do remember renting it and playing a very good chunk of it, if not beating it.
Yeah, and this game came out on PS2. I think it came out on all the consoles, right?
Yeah, it was not like open world or anything like the Spider-Man 2 tried to be, and succeeded definitely because people love that game. This was very much like a very linear chapter by chapter story type of game, but it did go beyond just the first movie because they added in a whole bunch of other villains.
They did.
And it's basically probably the main reason I know about a lot of Spider-Man villains was actually from this game because I didn't know many of them before this.
That's actually a good point because a lot of games based on comic book movies, I mean, man, we're getting into like some deep territory there, but it's like if they just followed scene by scene on the movie, it would be a boring game. And even then, they sometimes were. But it's like they try to sprinkle in the villains that you otherwise did not see in the movie. And I think that was like that was the incentive. This is the world as in the movie world, but then you get a little bit extra. And I always thought that was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I actually have a game I'd like to bring up because it came with the Xbox that I got. The funny way I got an Xbox was my stepdad basically, he won some competition at work and got an Xbox. So he just gave it to me.
Nice.
And it came with Sega GT, but also it came with the number 10 pick on this list was Jet Set Radio Future.
Ooh, that was a good game.
So this one, I remember playing it. I don't think I got too far, but I just remember you're on like rollerblades and you're graffitiing stuff. But it is definitely an interesting concept. And I think didn't it get it started on like the Dreamcast originally?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got the first Jet Set Radio. I actually played that like a month ago because there's an HD edition on PS3, I believe it is. And that's the one I played.
Yeah, maybe it's something that I have to go back and revisit because maybe I don't know if I got stuck or something, but I don't know why I didn't get very far in it.
It's an awesome element, though, because it takes, like, Tony Hawk in you're grinding, you're jumping around, but then you have the graffiti element, and, we talked about this on the PS2 side with cel-shaded games like Sly and all that. Like, Jet Set's another game that did that really good, and especially with the Xbox. I mean, one of the benefits of the Xbox is, more often than not, the games look best on Xbox, right? So it's like...
Yeah, it was absolutely the most powerful system of the generation.
Exactly. It really was. It really wasn't. And as a matter of fact, at number 2 in this list, I think this is one of those games that really accentuated like the visual quality is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. This is a series that admittedly I've always I've jumped into, but I don't stick with, and I can't sit here and like tell you why. Like I own the first one. I own the ones on 360 because it's like that bucket list where you say, "Oh, next year." Like
Yep.
I love Metal Gear, so I got to play this. And I remember playing, I think it was Pandora Tomorrow that had online multiplayer. That was freaking insane. Like I don't know if you ever
Yep.
played that one, but what about the
No.
first one?
I did rent this game, and I remember I feel like I was intimidated by it. Like
It's different, right? It's like
yeah,
you're not used to that type of like stealth waiting.
yeah. I remember getting it and then just being like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like play this game. I feel like I'm bad. Nowadays, I'd probably be like, okay, what was I so afraid of? But I just remember, I think like with the night vision and everything, like I had no idea what I was doing, and I hadn't played like Metal Gear Solid at this time, so a stealth type game was just completely out of my element, and I again rented it but did not get far at all.
So we do have two more games here that I want to get to. The first one at number 16 is a Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance. Now this right here, I wish Keith was a part of the conversation because I had played and beaten Metal Gear Solid 2 on the PS2, and that was freaking awesome. And I don't know if you know about Substance, but it's like you get a little bit more, essentially. Like you got I forget if it was a second disc on this one. I know MGS3 got the second disc with Subsistence, but it's like you even got a skating game within this. It's like
Really?
they just went ridiculous, adding like a whole bunch of plus stuff, like a bonus stuff. So I guess they needed to figure out a way, how do we get the people that bought MGS2 on the PS2 to double dip? And then we ended up getting this version, which I actually own. I still have my copy of this game. So you haven't played Metal Gear Solid 2 yet, right?
No, I beat the first one years ago and was like, I'm gonna play the rest of the series, and I still haven't gotten to it. But I swear, one of these days, I'm gonna play through all of them.
The good
And
thing
I
is
think I have
you can
the
get it
HD
freaking anywhere.
collection. Yeah, I have like the PS3 HD collection, so I'm sure that has the Substance version. I'm guessing.
Yeah, it
on
has
it,
most
may-
of the contents in that, but like those games are still amazing. It's one of those games, especially this one that it's like you think of 2001, 2002, and it's like not great 3D graphics, but then you look at a game like this, Final Fantasy X, it's like, what the hell, guys? You were ridiculously. I mean, look, they had the budget, right? I mean, when you have the
Yeah.
money to make things happen, but it's insane how different the quality in this game visually is compared to other ones.
Yeah, it is. This generation is definitely interesting because there's some games that still hold up extremely well, and other ones that you're just like, how is this even on the same console?
Exactly, and one of the games that I really do think became a defining game for the console. It's also available on PC as far as I believe, but the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I mean,
Yeah,
I played a lot of Oblivion.
definitely. I was gonna say it's definitely a game that probably couldn't exist on any other console in this generation, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of the few games that you look at the scope, because I never played it, right? To this day, I've never played this one. I played Skyrim. I played another version of Skyrim, and I've also played Oblivion. But then I would always look at gameplay of this game and just be like, wow, it's like first person,
Yeah.
but it's not narrow corridors, because I think that's what we were used to, right? It's like you get a game, it's usually like two big old walls on the sides, you walk down. This one's like, no, you are the adventure in first person mode, and that to me was
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, funny enough, I remember my sister actually talked a lot about this game because she had like her group of friends. There was a few people that loved this game, so she was always telling me like, "Oh, like we're at my friend's house. We're playing Morrowind. This game's like crazy. It's so big. You could like do anything in it." And like she's talking about how like detailed it was, and obviously my computer. I didn't have an Xbox at the time. My computer was definitely not good enough to play this game. So that's like the first time I really heard about the Elder Scrolls series was Morrowind, and something. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people still love it today, and it might be worth playing. But at the time, this was one of the most impressive games out there.
No, without a doubt. And just to list off and relive that quick nostalgia for everybody, some of the other games that came out in this year for the OG Xbox include Jedi Outcast, Shenmue 2, Medal of Honor Frontline, awesome first-person shooter. I actually have a copy for the PS2. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. This, to me, is when Mortal Kombat was not great. Armageddon was a little bit better. I don't know if you ever played Mortal Kombat around this time.
Maybe a little bit, but did not get into it very much.
It was rough. It was rough. Now, one game that I would be curious for us to experience, having played Silent Hill and Resident Evil, is Onimusha. Now, on the Xbox, we got an alternate version, which is Genma Onimusha, coming out after the original game, because I believe Onimusha 2 or 3 had come out around this point. I think it was like the second one or something. But these games are kind of like tank controls-y, like they kind of remastered and not really like the very first one. So it's those games like that come to mind. Is there anything with the Xbox in 2002? Like, there's not Halo that came out this year, right? You know, the number one game on this list is actually Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3,
Yeah.
which 4 was at number 3 on the PS2. So that's very interesting, right? How kind of the different the situation is.
And I wonder because I think they were kind of optimizing some of these games, or I don't know if they were like upscaling them a teeny bit for the Xbox, but I know like the Grand Theft Auto games came later and stuff. So I wonder, Xbox sometimes got a little bit later releases, but they were the superior version to play a lot of times.
I mean, a good example is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 XL.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I think in the case also of Tony Hawk 4, which again came out in 2002 for the PS2, each one, I think there was an exclusive level for every system, if I remember correctly.
Could not recall.
I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it was Tony Hawk 4 that did that.
But it's interesting. Like, I think when you look at the PS2 in its list, it was more like, oh, this is the PlayStation 2, whereas the Xbox list seems like here's kind of like a greatest hits.
Yeah, it was not their banner year, I would say.
Exactly, because we got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. They both came out that year. 3 came out in March, and then 4 came out in October. So it's a lot of sports games.
No wonder people could be feeling the fatigue.
I mean, a lot. But for everybody watching and listening, what are some of your favorite games for the OG Xbox, especially around like 2002? We got even more games like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. Like, we can continue having this conversation. So make sure to join the Discord over at acastofthepast.com/Discord. If you're checking this out on the podcast feed, hey, hopefully you enjoyed our reaction to the PS2 and the Xbox lists. The best way you can support the podcast really is by dropping that 5-star review. And if you're checking this out at youtube.com/acastofthepast, make sure to subscribe and click on that bell. It's not just a catchy thing. It really, really does help. And if you enjoyed this conversation, it's like we are going to continue it, because on the following edition, we are reacting to GameCube and the Game Boy Advance. Is GameCube going to be somewhat similar to the Xbox's, maybe like greatest hits route? Is it going to be unique? And what about the Game Boy Advance and just like an unbelievable handheld that I freaking love? I want an SP because I traded it in and I'm an idiot. But we'll talk about that on the next episode of A Cast
to the
Past. I wouldn't go to the past with the Xbox in 2002, though. PS2 for sure, though. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing, and we are also available on podcast feeds. So search the name, click on the Sword and Stone, and enjoy a brand new episode every single Sunday.